I'm James Todd from Essex in the south east of England, just outside London.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and that probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving. Horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentice is. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. A little shopkeeping before we start. Well, the farrier world lost one of its greats last week with the passing of Corporal David Gully, FWCF. I first learned about this legendary man through Danny's interview with him on the Lockdown Farriery podcast. Then I got to meet him in person on both of my visits to Stoneleigh. It was neat to watch him try to make his way through the trade show hall while being stopped every few steps by someone wanting to say hi and shake his hand. Mr. Gully was very involved in our industry. He trained several apprentices. He competed representing England on 4 winning teams. He was the past president of both the BFBA and the European Federation of Farriers Association, and he was inducted into the International Horseshoeing Hall of Fame as well as the EFFA's Hall of Fame. If you want to learn more about this man and his incredible career, have a listen to his interview on the Lockdown Farriery podcast. It's episode 27. We are just a couple weeks away from a benefit clinic honoring another legendary farrier, Scott Collier of Scott Anvils. The Keep 'em Ringin' Clinic, May 17th and May 18th. It has a star-studded lineup of clinicians, and all the proceeds go to benefit the Collier family. We have a link posted here on our website, or you can contact Steve at 703-851-4373 for more details. And on that very same weekend, my friend and mentor, Chris Gregory, is coming to Canada for the Ontario Farriers Association's Spring Clinic. Chris will be doing 2 days of demos and lectures on the 17th and 18th, and then on the 19th, there is a hands-on forging clinic. Go to ontariofarriers.ca to sign up for your spot. And now for today's guest. I was introduced to this gentleman under the big competition marquee at Stoneleigh. I had just run into one of my friends, Ellie-May Buckland, whose interview is also in the pipeline. And she said, "You should meet James. He would make a great interview." So she made the introduction, and without hesitation, James agreed to sit down and have a chat. As you will hear, James's career spans many decades, and he lived through the various disruptive changes in the world that threatened the trade of farriery. He also has some interesting insights into the various ways that horses were brought back into popularity. We covered a lot of ground, and it was great to hear his stories. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
I was raised locally there. My uncle was the village blacksmith. My father was a farm worker he was a cowman, brought us children up. Went through ordinary education, primary school, secondary school, and then 15 started work. So when I was 14 and a half, we were looking around to see what career I might take. This was just before army prescription stopped, which they called national service.
Right.
I was worried sick that I would have to be called up to go into the army. I didn't want to go. Not for frightened of whatever, but I didn't like uniforms or taking orders.
As most farriers don't.
Well, it was nothing to do with farriery.
Well, I know, but it's just a personality trait that seems to be pretty common, isn't it?
My previous background to our family was that my grandfather was farrier sergeant in the First World War.
Okay.
My uncle was farrier sergeant in the Second World War. He was a good farrier and blacksmith. He served his time. When he came out of the army, he went back into the forge that he was trained in, took the business over, and then he took me on as an apprentice. So when I was 15, I started there. I left school on the Friday, Good Friday, day before Good Friday on the Thursday, just after my 15th birthday, and then went straight into the forge on the Tuesday after Easter Monday. And that was the start of my career.
Okay.
On to then, I had about 2 years before I was signed up as an apprentice. I was apprenticed to my uncle through the scheme that went through the Worship Company of Farriers. On my first intake of college training, which was at the Army Barracks in Melton Mowbray, the RAVC camp. It was only for the 2-week session. We were told halfway through the first week that we were going to take our RSS examination the following week. Now, I'm a first-year apprentice, and that doesn't normally happen until the 4th year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they said, well, don't worry. If you take it and fail, it makes no difference at all. The experience will be good.
Right.
Anyway, we all took it. I think there was 6 of us, and we all passed. So, a first-year student.
And you passed the final exam?
The final exam. Went back there 2 or 3 times over the next year or 2. Coming out of there after the apprenticeship finished.
And how long was your apprenticeship?
4 years.
Okay.
It was grant paid from the worship company, or the government would submit some of your wages. So that helped the master out because time he spent away.
When you were working with your uncle, were you his only apprentice?
Yes, I was his only apprentice.
Okay.
Then he had 1 or 2 apprentices before, and I was his only apprentice at the time. He was sort of semi-retired when I started working for him, not because of his age, his position in life. He didn't need to work.
Oh, okay.
To support himself. Him and his wife had another business, a haulage company, so he didn't need to work. But I was there every day, all day, every day. We was a blacksmith shop.
Okay.
All the horses that we shod came to the forge. They were either ridden there or bought along on road transport.
Oh, okay.
The owners would drive there, or their grooms would bring the horses along. We used to shoot a lot of hunters in the wintertime. We'd wait until Easter, the point-to-points racing, where then hunting will finish. So we get a few point-to-point competitors. And then we'd have kids' ponies, show jumpers, and the like. But we would probably only shoot horses in the morning.
Okay.
In the afternoon, we would do, I say we, it was me. Because he would go home at 1 o'clock and that was his day finished in the forge.
Right, okay.
But we used to build a lot of trailers for the agricultural farmers locally. You know, we'd convert lorries, tipper lorries into corn trailers. So they could bring the grain in. In the wintertime, we would sharpen harrows and do repairs on other agricultural machinery.
It's like a proper blacksmith shop.
But yeah, and Mrs. Jones's saucepan's handle was loose, so we'd have to, we'd tighten that up for her, and we'd re-shaft forks and spades and shovels.
Okay.
So we had all that with a few bits and pieces hanging out the front there with brooms and the like. So it was like a store in a way, And in the back room we'd have all thousands and thousands of nuts and bolts and screws and that. And the farm, a lot of the farms just used to have a maintenance guy. He would come in and buy bits and pieces.
Right.
And we'd cut steel up and people would take that away. So it was a proper blacksmith shop. We'd get the odd bit of wrought iron work to do. We'd make fire baskets and with gates and all that. Yeah. So it was a very diverse.
No kidding.
But yeah, he was great.
He wore a lot of hats in a day, I think.
Oh, it was lovely. It was really good.
Now, did you hand make the shoes?
All our shoes were handmade.
And all concave, or?
No, we had plain stamped.
Okay.
This is in 1960 when I started. When my careers master at school asked me what I was going to do, and I said I was going to work in the forge blacksmith shop. And he looked at me as if I was a complete alien. And he said, "Why on earth do you want to do that? There is no future in horses."
Oh.
On our books, we had 2 delivery ponies. We had a milk delivery pony.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But when I grew up as a younger child, when my father worked at another place, the milk was sent down to the farm. They had a milking bottling plant, and they used to go out on the horse-drawn drays, milk floats, and delivered around the streets. It was this transition from horses to motor vehicles, and on the farm, the farm horses were being replaced by tractors.
Right.
And that was happening then. Not before or after, but right
as you were starting.
Yeah. So no one knew what the future held.
Right.
It was just, completely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give too much thought to it. We used to get through all these bits and pieces. And then in the late 60s, so mid to late 60s, show jumping was televised.
Okay.
So we followed the show jumping every night about 9 o'clock at night through one week in October. There would be all the highlights of the show jumping, and all these people's names come up. Harvey Smith, David Broom, and more. We followed them, and everyone was asking, did you see so-and-so? What, that did well? Yeah, it was just
part of the culture.
Yeah, like snooker is now, or hockey, or whatever. We just followed it. And then the equine industry picked up, and then we had the Princess Anne started to event.
Right.
She was European champion. Now you've got a royal that is an active rider who's European champion. And of course, whatever they do, everybody else wants to do. And it just gave the industry a lift.
Okay. Now, when would this have been?
In the late 60s, Captain Mark Phillips, who she married, he won Burley and Windsor Horse Trials and all those. It become every household knew what was going on.
Right.
And the kids wanted their ponies, and it did the industry a lot, big and good injection. I don't think many people realise how much of an impact that made.
No kidding.
But when you look back on it, Prince Philip started driving competitively. Then he became president of the Driving Association. I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, he was a household name, obviously as the Duke.
Right.
But for his competing. And then other team members, their name got out. George Bowman from Yorkshire, he was a well-known figure. And it's just really got a hold.
Got things going. Now, you took an interest in carriages as well, right? You started showing.
I had some interesting friends. I was going to say girlfriends, but they were girlfriends. One in particular, we was going to buy a horse together to go show jumping.
Okay.
She competed well, but we never got round to that. We went to look at a couple, but it never came to fruition. I never rode because I could never afford to ride. And I always thought, well, I won't have a horse unless I can look after it.
Right.
So I didn't have a horse. I didn't have any property to where to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But later on, one girl came in the forge and she had a lovely horse and she used to knock the shoes out in 10 days. And I said, what on earth are you doing with this horse? Oh, she said, that's just how he is, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, because I see her ride a few times and she used to niggle the horse.
And what does that mean?
That means she would ask it on with her feet and hold him back with her hands. So he didn't know whether to stop or go.
Right, yeah.
You could see she was niggling him all the time. He didn't know exactly what he wanted. And he had an unfortunate habit, too, of rearing.
Well, I can't blame him, really.
And she came in and I said, why don't you just get off the road? Because she used to do a lot of
road work.
Get on the grass verge. Oh, you can't, you can't do that. I said, you ride him then? So I said, I will, on one condition. And she said, what's that? I said, you don't. And I wasn't a jockey. No, I could ride, but I wasn't that good.
Right.
So I jumped on him, go up to the stables, jump on him. They got him ready for me, you see. Yeah, perfection. Jump on him. We'd go out for a ride. The first day we went out, and I went with her friend, and we went up the road, through the woods, blah, blah, blah. Cut back. So Anne says to the other girl, how did he go? Meaning the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Shut. You wouldn't believe it. He was an absolute gentleman. She said, nothing. She said, no. I said, what are you talking about, you two? She said, well, when we go through into that wood where the crossroads is, in the path, she said, he always rears there. I said, you never told me before we went. I could have been injured,
mm-hmm.
My livelihood was at stake.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, I got on very well with him. He wouldn't come on the left rein, couldn't bring him round. Or if he saw somewhere, if he was in a show jumping ring, sometimes he'd take off and go straight through the ropes. He was a head case. But he wasn't so much of a head case as they were making him a head case.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, I got the measure of him. Great, lovely. In the end, she sold him to one of our veterinaries who was the joint master of the foxhounds. Blow me down if he didn't point him. In the end, he was a racehorse. But I could get 10 weeks out of his shoes. This has been something that I've always been interested in. If a horse gets a shoe off, I want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
We've done all sorts. There's my uncle who triggered it off for me. He used to hunt. And one of the guys who used to hunt always used to lose a shoe. And he sat behind him one day, watched him go over the fence, and the hind foot come forward, grabbed the inner toe of the front shoe from the heel of the hind foot and yank it off. Tommy said, I know how to cure that. He said, well, you'd be obliged if you would. Brought him into the forge, and we used to put a spoon heel on the outside heel branch of the hind shoe. He never, ever caught another front shoe.
Really?
Really, yeah.
It's just from observing and...
yes.
Figuring it out.
Applying some sort of logic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's always a reason for something.
Yeah.
It's fun to do some investigation.
Yeah. Were there any other tricks like that you kind of figured out along the way?
Yeah, there was another one. I used to shoe the South End police horses. The only shoeing I did outside the forge.
Oh, okay.
It's 3 sets of shoes. They had a forge down there and an anvil. We used to just put the shoes in the back of the car, go down there and shoe. Or I'd 12 years, I think we were doing it. Once they phoned me up. They said, one of the horses has got a hind shoe off. So I said, all right, jumped in the motor and went down there. I said, where did you get the shoe off? We got the shoe loose. That's why it had moved. They said, oh, don't know. I said, did he peck at all anywhere, stumble? No, can't remember anything like that. I said, all right, so I went in the stable. I had looked all around the lower part of the stable, around the wall, see if there's a mark there, nothing. Just couldn't fathom it out. And then put the shoe on. And about 3 months later, we did the same thing again. Well, now we're getting to repetition.
A habit, yeah.
All right. Questioned them again. No, couldn't get anything out of them. Now I looked, and the gate for their yard was a sliding door.
Okay.
And the track at the bottom, paving, come down and over like it was rounded.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did was going in there, if his foot landed wrong, he would slide backwards and the hind shoe used to get caught on the rail.
Oh, right.
And that's where he got the shoe loosened. Remembered what my uncle did with the other horse that
with the spoon.
Did exactly the same thing. Never any trouble again. No, it was just great. It was good. You find this with different horses. Once I went over to my own horses was bred. The shoe, we pulled him out the stable, tied him up to be shod. And when I went to his foot, the shoe wasn't on there. They'll see him ping it off. And it went up in the air. There was a trailer in the yard full of manure. We searched that, searched all round, over the fence, next doors, no sign of a shoe. We looked in the stable to see if it had gone back into the stable because it flew up in the air. No one bothered to track it as it was flying through the air. It's just, and never did find the shoe.
Oh, jeez.
Until about 2 months later, I'd picked a lot of hay up on my truck and took it to the property. When I unloaded it, I climbed up on the top to chuck the bales down to the receiver on the ground. And I looked over the roof of the stable, and there was the shoe in the gutter.
So it really flew.
You find things out, don't you?
Yeah. No kidding. A little observation.
I finished my apprenticeship. I think I was a member of the association when I was an apprentice. Our association we had different chapters, branches.
Right.
Did certain parts of the country. Well, ours was the London branch, which then became the Romford branch of our local town. We used to go along to these meetings and find out what was going on. And then from there, I started getting involved more and more with the workings of the association. My uncle retired in 1973, and I took the business over.
Oh, okay.
By which time I think I was 27. I never had any experience of running a business before in my life.
Right.
Started doing I had to pay him rent because he retained the forge, you see. I had to pay him rent. He moved to Scotland, so I had to send me money up to him every month in an envelope. Can't remember how much it was now, something about £3 a week rent. Went into 74 and we had a disruption in general industry. The power crisis was on, miners' strikes.
Oh, okay.
And the government brought everything down to a 3-day week where you could only use the energy that was supplied to you for 3 days of each week.
Oh, wow.
To conserve the supplies.
Right.
I can't remember who was the minister then. Anyway, this went on. I made an application to go on for 5 days a week because animals, they can't understand what's going on.
No, yeah. It's an animal
So
welfare.
I had an exemption only to do with horseshoeing. The rest of it, for welding and forging and so forth,
you couldn't do.
I had to comply with the rules. And we experienced difficulty in getting our supplies through. And through the association branch meetings, I said to all the others, I said, if any of you run out of material, I said, I've got plenty. I said, come up and I'll see what I can do for you. Help each other, that was the thing. So we did. When they went to pay me for what they took from me, their figures were different to mine. Mine were cheaper. And when the rep come round from one of the companies, I said, how come my stuff is cheaper than everybody else's? And he said, well, that's simple, Jimmy. You buy in bulk. They don't.
Right.
So I said, that's all right. When the 3-day week ended, we got back to not some sort of normality. I said, yeah, all right, then, boys. And they said, no, we're buying for you. You've looked after us. So that's how I started a supply company.
Okay, and then you ran the supply company
Then
out
I
of
ran
the forge?
out of the forge.
Okay.
Yeah, I had everything in there, nails, rasps, and steel, coke.
Yeah.
Then began buying the tools. I went over to the States in the early part of the 80s, went to the convention out there. I started meeting some lovely people. But the first place I went to was Texas, Houston.
Yeah.
That was a convention there. Met Bernie Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
The American team, one particular person, a guy called Myron McLean.
Right.
We were talking because I was looking at the ways some of these Tennessee walking horses were shot and found it different.
To say the least, yeah.
It's just mind-blowing. Then they were the 5-gated horses or something we'd never come across. And it was an education in itself. And talking to Byron and not knowing who he was or where he fitted in anywhere. And then it come to the last day when they had the presentation for and choosing of the team. I didn't even know they were going to choose a team, but the American team was always
chosen at the convention.
Chosen at that. It was a knockout competition.
Mm-hmm.
And Myron made the team. I said, when you come over, Myron, I said, you can come to the forge. And he kept in touch, and he did. Brought the American team over, and they had a practice run in the forge. Got to know quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Ward was there.
I was just going to ask who are some of the other folks in that group.
Kenworth. A few of the others, they didn't come. They weren't on that team that year, but either side of that, they were
right.
There. And we had a guy called Dave Duckett who used to compete in the States.
Yeah.
With Bob Marshall up in Canada, of course.
Yep.
So, and I hadn't met Bob Marshall before. I think that's the first time I'd met him there.
At the convention?
Yes. Dave Duckett I'd met before. Met a lot of suppliers. It was good. Over here, earlier than that, I started competing in 1973, 74. Now I'm 27 at that time. But I hadn't competed at all anywhere. My uncle entered me for a apprentice competition in Hertfordshire. And when the day come round, the competition was cancelled because of the knock-on effect of the industry, horses being replaced with tractors and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was in the late 50s. Horses were going out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no two ways about that. They were finished.
Being replaced, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was a bit of a hard pill to swallow because I think, well, competitions are going.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. There was all sorts of shows that were dropping the farriery competitions or horseshoeing competitions. Then they started reviving. Pal of mine I teamed up with, we started going to compete and met all these lovely people.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful tradesmen. A guy called Alan Calvert, I first come across him in 1974, I think, down at the Devon County show. Unfortunately, he died this year. I went up to his funeral, but a great guy. He was a class act.
Yeah.
And him and Dave Duckett were about the same age, I should think. And I think Alan was a little bit younger than Dave. And he was nip and tuck with them two all the way
Just
through.
competing and always
Yeah.
back and forth between who placed where.
And it was a joy to watch them because I'd never seen anything like their work.
Right.
Because we never got to get around the competitions. We started going to them and got to know these guys. The rest, they say,
It's history.
yeah.
And how long did you compete for?
Competed up till the 90s. I wasn't a winner of any degree, but I held my own. And I was a judge for the Works Company of Farriers. I was a member of the company. I got to judge the Great Yorkshire Show and the Devon County Show, South of England, Kent County. Yeah, it's a lot of shows. But I also, you see, there was a parade in London on Easter Monday called the London Harness Horse Parade. It was an amalgamation of the heavy horse, the Vanner Horse Parade, and the Harness Horse Parade. They all amalgamated and had this lovely day on Bank Holiday Monday, Easter Monday. Well, you've heard the song, haven't you, from Julie Garland, Wear Your Easter Bonnet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like that up there. We have different boroughs in London that have their pearly kings and pearly queens, probably something you've never heard of. But you'd have the Bermondsey, Tottenham, Bow, these little towns within London,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd have their pearly kings and queens. The men would have had a jacket on or a coat with all the buttons sewn to it in a pattern. They'd have a hat with all their buttons on, and then the women would be the same. They were revered in each particular borough. The women that went on to the vehicles that were taken on the parade would wear Easter bonnets. The kids were dressed up. It was a very flamboyant scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have a lovely commentator, and he would go, "Oh, and here comes Lo Happy Seller. Hello, Lo, how are you? Lovely to see you've got your wife with you today." And he'd be driving his pony called Dolly or whatever. And they'd all be dressed up. The harness would be sparkling clean. The vehicle would be clean. Everyone was judged. If you got a first class award, you got a horse brass and for a keepsake. And that's all what people went up there for, just to get the horse brass. And if you got a second class award, you got nothing.
It was all or nothing.
Yeah, but it was. You would see people coming from all over England, Scotland, Wales, all sorts of ponies, all sorts of horses. The Royal Mews used to send a couple of vehicles out, a brougham or whatever, and corricles. There would be pairs, there'd be teams. The breweries from London used to send the heavy horse teams down. Yeah. They'd have a pick-hatch formation, 4 in hand, 6 in hand. It was just lovely.
Yeah, it must have been quite the sight.
It was, and I took my, I had a black and white driving cob. He was a bit of a character. All the kids loved him. And I'd come over and give him sugar lumps. We would just have a good day. It was all over by 1 o'clock. Then we just get home, take everything off, bomb. Then we jump in the motor and go to the point.
Oh, really?
In the afternoon, yes.
Oh, okay. Did you ever come home with a brass?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Then one year they said, Jim, would you, there was an award for the farriers if the shoeing was correct, like a card for efficient shoeing. No more. It's sponsored by the Horse and Hound magazine.
Oh, okay.
So I said, would you judge in future? So I said, oh, no. I said, I'm collecting brasses. So he said, well, don't worry, you'll get a brass because we all the officials.
Oh, right.
Get a horse brass as well.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I said, well, it's okay then, I will.
Everything for the brass.
And then the guy who one of the other judge, the senior judge, he used to give the awards out willy-nilly. I used to shoe a lot of ponies to go there. I had a lot of customers who had these driving horses. Right. And I used to sweat my nuts off getting the job right.
Right, yeah.
As right as I could get it. And when it come to it, I've gone, you get a card like a postcard, and you've got the name of the competitor on there, the turnout. You put the number, and then you ask the driver of the lot, the farrier's name. So you can put that down.
Right.
Well, I had a steward that did that. And surprising thing was that if you ask for the farrier's name, they've all gone, turn around to each other and gone, what's his name?
Wow.
Yeah.
Really appreciated.
Oh, it's Albert, isn't it? Albert? Or George? I go, interesting. What's your vet's name? Oh, it's Mr. So-and-so, so-and-so. I said, strange, isn't he? You know his name. Most important man, you don't know his name.
Mm-hmm.
It was an insult, I thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Anyway, we used to get that done. End of the day, I've got a pack of cards like that because there would be probably 3,500 entries.
Holy jeez.
So you multiply that by feet.
Yeah, that's a busy day.
And then you've got the teams, put the cards forward, we check them out, all them there. And I've got the pile from that right down to that for passes. And they're going, you can't do that, Jim. So what do you mean you can't do it? It's got to be shod fit for purpose. And they're not. So they don't get a pass. That's all there is to it. Oh, no. This other guy was, because the Act of Parliament come in for the FRC registration.
Right.
And there was a fire engine there with a pair of horses on front. You could see from a distance they weren't going to pass. And I see him, he got an award. So I said to the farrier, who was the judge, I said, how come you give them an award? He said, oh, well, they do try hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. But what can you do? Yeah. I'm just the other judge.
Right.
The nicest thing about it was I used to get some phone calls before the event from farriers who were shoeing ponies to go there. And they'd say, oh, Jim, how would you like these shod?
Right.
And that used to give me a buzz because there was respect.
Mm-hmm.
Or I had a bad reputation, I don't know which.
Yeah, right. Right. And they were just trying to make sure they could appease you. Yeah.
We had some fun up there. I used to know all the turnouts, every single one. There was all like friends, if you like.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
I used to, then later on, I was competing against a lot of them in the show ring, you know, so in the driving. And they had some wonderful turnouts there. Wonderful, yeah.
This is the Stratum Tectorium. Short answer questions brought to you by Out West Design and Fabrication. Your choice for farrier rigs. Favorite book?
Charles Holmes.
Charles Holmes.
If you're talking about a technical book for...
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, technical book or just regular book too.
Oh, regular book is types. I love transport history, especially coaching.
Right, of course.
And transport in the 1700s, the whole industry was knocked out of place.
Right.
Through the rail service. They finished up all the coaches. Coaching was such a thing.
Right. Been a lot of disruptions to the horse world, haven't there? Favorite brand of nails?
Mustad.
What shoe sizes or lengths would you usually have to cut for the horses that you were dealing with mainly?
To the foot.
So all over the map then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. All sections, all concave sections.
Okay.
Light and heavy. Now these sections have been increased because there's inch per half concave that was never available.
Oh, okay.
Never made up until only about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Or 25 years ago.
Favorite make of rasp?
Nicholson's, but that's not my favourite make because it was the best rasp on the scene, and that was the most available. But again, you see, rasps have changed so much. We used to use a 12-inch double-ended rasp. You probably don't know what that is.
Double-ended how?
No tang.
Oh, really?
No tang, and a slight lack of teeth in the centre.
Oh, right. Yes, I have seen that.
And then you've got coarse on one end, fine on the other. You turn it over, got coarse and fine on the other side.
Okay.
And that was, everyone had those, and they were thick. I'm talking about 5/16 thick, I think.
Be heavy.
They were heavy, yeah. They did a 14-inch as well, and I believe they did a 16-inch. And that was heavy.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a big hunk of steel.
Then they brought in the 12-inch tang, is what we used to start with. Then they brought in the 14-inch tanged. And then they lightened them up into what is more usable these days. And there was a rasp on the circuit called Magic Cut, Nicholson's Magic Cut. And Duckett, Dave Gully, and all the top competitors used it. It wasn't available to anybody else. They used to come in from Holland. And when I was at the convention, I went over to Nicholson's stand and I said about the Magic Cut rasp. I said, we can't get them in England. And they said, well, I don't know why. I said, they come in from Holland. Someone brings them in from there, and there's only very few of them.
Right.
So I said, well, I could sell them if if I could get
them. Yeah.
And I used to buy through another company in Dartford, a tool bank, and they sourced them for me. And I used to sell them all over the place.
Oh, okay.
And so many people got upset because it had taken away a little edge they had on everybody else.
Yep. What was your dream farrier rig?
I haven't got one.
Well, yeah, I guess you always worked out of your shop.
I always worked out of the forge. I did have a farrier's rig that was horse-drawn.
That doesn't surprise me.
And I showed that at Wembley at the Royal International Show. The Army, they had a bomb go off in Hyde Park about 2 weeks before that particular competition. And there was a very famous horse called Sefton that had a lot of nails go into him because it was a nail bomb.
Oh, geez.
Out of respect, I wouldn't light the fire on the forge because my intention was to light the fire. And when the judge came through and he looked at it and he said, "Oh yes, sir," I said, "Don't worry, sir." I said, "If you want me to, I've got my card." I said, "My registration card. If you want me to, I'll light the fire up, make a set of shoes, and shoe this cob in front of you." No, he said, "No need for that," he said. And because of the nature of the outfit, I got third place at the Royal International.
Yeah, pretty unique rig.
Yes.
And that somebody who owned it knew how to actually operate out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's really neat.
But as for rigs, other people, I just stand there with the mouth open sometimes because they just blow you away. But I've never used one, so I wouldn't know.
Right. Favorite rounding hammer?
Favorite? There's only one. Bruce Wilcox.
Okay. Favorite type of bar stock to work with?
A mild steel.
A certain size or?
No.
Nope.
Just mild steel.
Okay. Favorite pastime after work?
It was to go out for a drive with the horse.
Yeah.
A lovely little Section D cob. He was flamboyant, but he was a buddy. I could go in the woods. I put him at anything, go anywhere, deepest mud, down ditches, up the other side, with the vehicle on behind. And then it just great. Didn't have to think about anything else.
Next thing on your bucket list?
A good funeral, I think.
Well, that is the first time I've had that answer. Wow. Did you ever use machine-made shoes or always handmade?
I have put on machine-made shoes.
What was your favorite kind?
I didn't have one. I'm sorry, I lacked any enthusiasm over machine-made shoes.
That's okay.
I stocked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 manufacturers, 7 manufacturers' shoes
Really?
as a supply company. These thousands of shoes in the forge, in the stock room, and went out with a rule to measure the horse's foot to make a shoe.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
didn't.
You didn't.
I couldn't actually see the economics.
Even with the labor involved.
Well, I was with my uncle. We'd talk about different things, and it's a mobile shoeing. If you've got a rig, off you go. Between point A and point B, you're sitting driving.
Mm-hmm.
Here, when the horse walks out the forge, you get on with something else.
Right. Yep.
So you're earning.
You're always productive.
You're productive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. That makes sense.
So it was just a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you take pride in your work, you don't need someone else's product to.
Yep.
You haven't got the depth for the nail. You haven't got the pitch.
There were always trade-offs to it.
You got to do work on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go in the forge, in the fire, come out, and you shape it up. I suppose take twice as long to do that, and you've made the shoe.
Right.
So it's all there.
What was your ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day?
One would do.
You're not the first to say that.
When I first took the business over, I'd do 8 a day in, day out,
Wow.
make and fit.
Wow.
So sometimes I could make them in between.
Mm-hmm.
One horse gone, you could get some shoes made. But we replaced shoes on our regulars
Every time, right?
every time. And on the nails on the wall, they would be hanging up there and then their name chalked on the shoe,
Right.
ready for this time. And that wasn't just for that reason that they were ready for them. We got a phone call to say they've been out hunting and lost a shoe.
You had one.
We know a replacement is straight away.
Right. Okay. Favorite anvil?
That's a difficult one for me to answer because we had one anvil in the forge that was brand new in 1952, 53. I think it cost not too much money, 150 quid. It was a 400 weight anvil.
Wow.
6-inch face. And it was just a lovely anvil. We call it a London pattern.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know about others.
Right. Okay.
Never floated my boat at all.
Right. Favorite inspirational quote?
Only as good as your last job.
Yep. If you were stumped on a case or needed backup, who did you call?
Well, it depended. There were so many available. If you're talking about advice, then a phone call to somebody you respected, who was more of an expert in that field.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, who have I called on before? I don't know. Difficult to say. In 60 years of shoeing, it's different. You can't remember.
Yeah, right. Did you have a favorite shoe or package for a mystery lameness?
No, you find out what the problem is.
Yeah.
You source the problem and then get on with it. But normally, it's so easy. If you've got a puncture wound, you source it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an intermittent lameness and you don't know why, or it's not obvious, it usually comes out. One horse I had that wasn't right. The dealer who owned it wanted us to have a look at it, see what was going on. Couldn't find out what it was. The only thing was it had a boxy foot, upright heels. And I thought no more about it. About 6 months later, a girl comes down. She bought a new horse. She said, can you put a set of shoes on it? Yeah, okay. She bought it in. She said, strangest horse. She said, I ride it. She said, I've got one stirrup seems to be longer than the other, one leather. And my leg sort of is further down one side than the other side. And she couldn't put a finger on it. And I just got underneath, in front of it, looking up to its neck, looked at his chest, and the shoulder on the offside was fuller than the shoulder on the near side, was straight down. And what was happening was that because it was flatter on one side than the other, her leg was longer on that side. Then I said, "You had this horse vetted?" She said, "Yes, I've had it vetted." I said, "Well, it's wrong. You've got to go back to the vet." I phoned the vet up. Then I found out it was the horse I'd looked at earlier.
Right, the lame one.
The lame one. It was a conformation problem. And it wasn't lame.
It's just the way it moved.
Yeah, so that was interesting, that type of scenario. Having a lameness that actually wasn't down in the foot. It was...
Right, it was higher up.
Yeah. Not obvious to anyone. If she hadn't have said...
About the stirrups?
About this, yes. Wouldn't have twigged it.
Right, yeah. I've often said, as my career has progressed and my knowledge has become better, I've started looking further and further up the horse at what could be causing what I'm dealing with.
Funnily enough, something you do subconsciously. When horses come in to the forge, sometimes they used to unload over the other side of the road and bring them across. And used to have a bar across the front to stop them getting away.
Right.
So it was inside for safety. You don't realise what you're doing when the horse is coming in. You're eyeballing the whole animal. And you just you're scanning all the way down to its feet, footfall, pace, everything. The old thing was that you'd read the shoes that you took off. They would tell a story.
Right. Yep.
But you see a lot more before you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realise that you're taking it all in.
Right.
And that's where you're picking it up.
That's when you know you've really embraced your craft, I think.
Well, yes, I suppose so. But it's what they call experience, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no shortcut to that.
No shortcuts.
What did you use as your planner or diary?
Just a 24-hour, a day-to-day diary.
Yeah, pen to paper. Favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
I haven't really had any.
Wow. I've heard a couple people say that. Not many can say that, so that's good. Favorite drink?
It's in an ordinary beverage, cup of tea, but I love a brandy.
Okay.
Or a beer.
Okay. Do you have a favorite song?
Yeah, all of them. Things like American Pie stick out.
Yeah, okay.
And when we're traveling a lot, we used to listen to a lot of country and western.
Right.
And we loved to hear Merle Haggard sing and Willie Nelson.
Did you work out?
No.
And what would you have been if not a farrier?
I don't really know. Probably in the farming somewhere.
The last question, the COVID question. If you were stuck in a shop with somebody for a month in isolation, who would you want it to be?
Oh, I have to find out if she's available.
Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, you're more than well. I don't think I've contributed a lot, but
you were perfect. It was great. Before I let you go, I wanted to say a few words about a tool I pick up pretty much every time I go out to the shop. Cody Gregory's Fuller. As with all things Cody does, he put a lot of thought and ingenuity into this tool. Do you ever find when you're creasing a shoe that you really struggle to get your fuller around the quarters? Well, so did Cody. So he created a fuller that does just that. Give one a try, and you'll wonder why you used a straight tool to go around curves for so long. And as I've said before, I'm really hard on equipment. I bust tools all the time, but Cody's hold up to my abuse. Go to CodyGregoryLLC.com or ask for them by name at your local farrier supply. You won't be disappointed. Well, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other out there. We'll talk soon.